Good morning, friends. Thank you for joining us as we remember the events of September 11th, 2001 on this, the 19th anniversary. And this year is a little bit different. This year we're doing the ceremony virtually. 2020 is a little different. It's strange. It's been difficult. It is a year that we will always remember. And there are moments in time that are going to be forever etched into our permanent recall for each of us. And I know that everyone up here, everyone who was around 19 years ago, September 11th, 2001, is one of those moments that we will always remember, where the details of which we will always remember precisely and without distortion where we were, who we were with, what emotions we felt, what words we prayed. And for each of us, we have specific recollections. For me, 19 years ago, I remember being huddled in my parents' living room, watching television footage of those airplanes being used like weapons, crashing into the World Trade Center, crashing into the Pentagon. I remember hearing the news reports of those Flight 93 heroes who fought back against the terrorists. I remember seeking out and contacting all my friends and family and those I cared about to make sure that they were safe and out of harm's way. But every September 11th, we gather to pay our respects to those that we lost. We pay respect in Milford to Avnish Patel, to Seth Morris, to Mike Miller. We remember those firefighters who ran into the burning buildings and never came out. We remember those police officers' lives who were cut short. We remember those children, boys and girls who lost parents. It is a sad day. It's a solemn day. It's a day that we reflect on the tragedy, but it is also a time where we remember how our nation came together, how we fought back against the terrorists, how we rallied, how we made sure that our founding principles of freedom and liberty were secured. So on a day that we mourn, on a very solemn day, we also celebrate. We celebrate the unconquerable American spirit. And so to all of you, I wish you health, be safe, be well. And at this point, I would like to recite the names of those Milford fallen. Mike Miller. Avnish Patel. Seth Morris.
Good morning. 19 years ago, this date, September 11th, was seared into America's memory. An attack was carried out against our country with a cruelty that was unequaled in our history. The lives of 2,977 people were prematurely extinguished on that ill-fated day, and there were 6,000 others who were injured. The immediate deaths included 265 on 4 planes, which also included the 19 terrorists, 2,605 in the World Trade Center and in the surrounding area, as well as 125 at the Pentagon. Also included among the dead were 343 firefighters and paramedics, 23 New York City police officers, and 37 Port Authority police officers who were struggling to complete an evacuation of the buildings and save office workers who were trapped in the higher floors. The town of Milford, like many other towns, did not escape the tragedy of the attacks. Milford lost 3 of its favorite sons on that day: Michael Miller, Avnish Patel, and Seth Morris. Each anniversary of this horrific event immediately conjures images of destruction of the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, as well as horrifying deaths of innocent people whose only mistake was having gone to work that morning. However, the anniversary of 9/11 should also provide us with moments to reflect on the unifying effect that fateful day had on the United States of America. The immediate aftermath of the attack saw our nation come together in acts of defiance and expressions of patriotism. Stores ran out of flags, millions donated blood, and thousands enlisted in the military. There was political bipartisanship as Congress passed $40 billion anti-terrorism and victims' aid measure 3 days after the attack. And who could forget the members of Congress singing God Bless America that night on the Capitol steps? Throwaway words like United We Stand were not just a motto, but the foundation of how America intended to move on. We are focused on the heroism of our first responders, our firefighters, and our police officers, putting their lives at risk and rushing into burning buildings while others were running out. In the end, it brought out the best in us, which hadn't happened in a while. Sadly, in these current times, we often focus on the divisions that exist rather than all that unites us. Let us all continue to reflect on all who forfeited their lives way too early that day. But let's also remember the heroism of the day, of all who risked their lives to save others. And let's not forget the love, the patriotism, and the genuine concern for others that pervaded the days following. Thank you. God bless America and its people. And God bless Milford, the little city with a big heart.
"19 years have passed since that horrific September morning. At 8:46 a.m., I learned a plane had struck one of the Twin Towers. It was said it was a small plane. Later, as the morning unfolded, we learned it was United Airlines Flight 175 that had first hit the World Trade Center. A second plane, American Airlines 11, struck the Twin Towers at 9:03 a.m. We also learned that attacks were taking place at two other locations, the Pentagon, and a fourth plane was diverted away from Washington, D.C., and crashed into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. These attacks left us in shock. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower collapsed, and just over a half an hour later, the North Tower crumbled. This was the deadliest act of terrorism. 2,996 were killed. 2,977 victims, and 19 al-Qaeda terrorists. 246 on 4 planes, 2,606 in the World Trade Center and surrounding area, and 125 people at the Pentagon. On the ground, more than 6,000 were injured. We want to forget, but we can't. We shouldn't, and we won't. Today, 19 years later, I remember 3 Milford residents who lost their lives on September 11th. Avnish Patel, 29-year-old financial analyst, Michael Miller, a 39-year-old bond trader, and Seth Morris, a managing director at Cantor Fitzgerald. These men drew from their early years through the Milford Public Schools, and each went on to become men who achieved great things. Their similarities in their zest for life, their determination to succeed, and their love of challenging life was striking. Unfortunately, 5 years later, Milford lost another one of its residents. Foreign high school graduate Corporal Jordan Pearson gave the ultimate sacrifice. He was defending our freedom and was killed in combat in Fallujah on August 25th, 2006. Jordan was a Marine corporal, reservist, and was just 21 years old. So that's why I remember September 11th, 2001, each and every year, to remember all the lives lost on that tragic day. I want to leave you with a short poem written by Avnish Patel. Time won't wait for you. If you've waited at all to do what you think is right, you've waited too long. Thank you, and God bless us all.
There are days that are forever seared in our memories. For my grandfather and his generation, they remember where they were when they heard that Pearl Harbor had been bombed. For my parents, they remember where they were when JFK was shot, Martin Luther King was shot, and when the man landed on the moon, the first man landed on the moon. For my generation, and for many of us watching this, September 11th, 2001 is a day that we will never forget. And I thank everyone who is watching this to help us to remember that day and keep it alive in our memory, and keep alive the memories of those who died that day. And sometimes we know that in explaining difficult things to children, it's hard to find a reason why something happened. I think it was actually Mr. Rogers' mother who had said, in great times of evil, look for the helpers. And that's one thing that you've heard today of those helpers on September 11th. The firemen and policemen who rushed into the building before it was collapsed and gave their lives. So we thank them for their service. For all of the people who joined the military after that to help defend our freedoms. And so we thank them. It's important that we remember that day so that we don't allow it to happen again. We don't allow a hatred to win and to allow an attack like that on our soil. But it's also important that we remember the aftermath of that day and how we came together as a country. I think it truly proved our motto of e pluribus unum, out of many one. And while we have to vow to never again allow that kind of an attack or that kind of hatred to prevail, we also have to vow to once again become one nation under God and to work together towards a more perfect union. Thank you to everyone who is taking the time to remember this day, to remember our Milford sons who gave their life that day, Michael Miller, Seth Morris, Avnish Patel. Thank you to everyone who is listening, because it is important that we keep the memory of this day alive, especially the memory of all of those who perished and of those who served us, those firefighters and first responders and policemen who rushed in there, and many made the ultimate sacrifice. And thank you to those who joined the military in the aftermath to help protect our freedoms.